Early little afternoon on Tuesday, coming to you from San Francisco, California. And I have the wrong title up. Not that. It gonna talk to you today about being comfortable with the unknown, which is a little bit of a follow-up from last week's talk of the gifts of having COVID, but a little different as well. So I'm a planner. Um, Many of you who know me or even spend a little bit of time with me know that I coach and I live a lot of my life with having dreams and plans for the future. Right now, for 2022, I have particular travel dates around keynotes, particular travel dates around teachings, and then a plan to be in Thailand in 4th of July. Got some plans for my housing and my personal life as well. And with everything that happens, I have a plan A, I have a plan B, I've got a bunch of other backup strands and threads because my brain keeps thinking about all of this. The challenge that I've become aware of is that doing all this planning is an attempt for me to organize and optimize and get control over things that are uncontrollable. And if anything, from having COVID last week or from dealing with the uncertainties of the pandemic, if there's anything that I know is that so much of what's around me is uncontrollable. Yet I still keep making these plans. I still keep wanting this illusion of control. So, what can we do about it? What can I do about it? First thing I want to talk about is really this paradox of planning and feeling. From working with different clients, there are planners, a little bit more controlling type A like me, and there are people who I would call maybe more feelers. People who want to wait and see on the day, all right, what do I feel like doing? Waiting till kind of a Friday night to be, what do I feel like doing today? What do I feel like having for lunch? And being able to be a lot more spontaneous and free and kind of jump into it. I don't think there's a right or wrong on either one of them. But one thing that might be helpful is to identify and know your patterns. What is it that you typically do? If you're a planner, that's one thing. If you're a feeler, that's one thing. And of course, I'm making it very black or white, and it does not need to be that. But for the interests of sharing, it's helpful to think of planners and feelers. Instead, the next time something's coming up, the next time someone asks you to do something, the next time you think about, hey, what might I want to do next month? Play with breaking your pattern and embracing the opposite. If you're typically a planner, see what it feels like to not plan, to not make that plan for the weekend, to not make those travel plans for February or March. Play with what it feels like to not do that. What does that feel like inside? For me, I often feel quite anxious, get a little knot in my stomach. I'm like, oh God, this doesn't feel good. But play with that. Play with not making plans for the next day of the weekend. And when it comes, just think about what is it that I want to do today? That's the stretch, that's the range area. If on the other end of the spectrum, you're someone who's much more feeling, make a plan. You can always change your mind, you can always cancel it. Just have a plan there to see what happens with it. So that's the first tip. If you're a planner, play with more feeling. If you're typically a feeler, play with more creation of plans. And these are all ways to stretch and range to see how can I deal with the unknown. The second thing for both types of people, planners and feelers, I always have this tendency to be like, when I have a plan, here's the plan, and it is set in stone. And I have justifications for that. Maybe you had to put down a certain amount of money. Maybe you had to commit certain resources. Maybe you don't want to let down friends or people who you have commitments to. But most of all, what if you could reframe these solid, hard line, absolute plans more as fluid pencil sketches? Make a plan, but know that you can change your mind. For example, in tech, if you have a particular launch date where something must happen, sure, You have a launch date. Let's say it's at the end of Q1 at March 31st. That's the plan. We go forward with it. However, know that things can change. We might get different pieces of feedback. The research might be different. User testing might yield different things. Have a plan, make the plan, but create them to be fluid pencil sketches. When I worked at design firms working on the future of consumer electronics, one of the things that we knew was so sacred was the fact that there would be CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, the first week in January every single year. That meant that most of the time we had to plan to give up our holidays to prep demos, videos, presentations for that show. Well, funny enough, this year, a lot of CES was ratcheted down because of Omicron, because of all this stuff happening. So I think for sanity, for the sense of, yes, you making plans is a false illusion of control, reframe the notion of plans as fluid pencil sketches. And what helps with that is remembering ABC, always be curious. What is it that's so tight and rigid about having to follow that plan? Probably it's because it's something that's really important to you. That's often what it is for me. But what if you go a little deeper? What is it about this particular thing that's very important to me? For example, a lot of what I held on to last year was I must launch my book in 2021. And I did. I was able to write and launch my book in 2021. But I had to go down and be really, really curious, just to be like, what am I giving up by prioritizing this? What am I saying no to instead? What am I giving up in terms of creating more clients, teaching, coaching? But be like, okay, is that still what I want? Yeah, it is still what I want. So I'd have to keep being curious and asking myself why that date was so important. And part of it for me was to be like, all right, I'm going to put a stake in the ground. And then I can move on to more promotion and sharing of the book in 2022. But when you have a plan, keep an open mind and keep reminding yourself ABC, always be curious. And then finally, the last way to become much more comfortable with the unknown is to lean into the process and to take each thing, each step, each part of it one day at a time. I was supporting a group of women last Saturday, and it was a professional circle, but one of the women had gotten some really heart-wrenching, heartbreaking news related to something happening very personal, related to a transgression, something that her fiance had hidden for a long time and had just come out into the light and into the open. And I remember listening to her talk about this. And what she said was, oh my gosh, I had always thought before that I would die if something like this had happened, that I could not continue. I don't know how other people bear things like this. But the reality is it's one day at a time. If you don't know what the future is, if you don't know what the answer to a question is, it's okay to say, I don't know one day. And then you revisit it again tomorrow. That's happened to me when I've gotten the unthinkable news that I've gotten fired, or the news that my marriage is over, that isn't the vision of the future that I had built. Through that, you might not know what to do, but it's really giving yourself permission to keep going one day at a time and to know that it's going to open up and unfold and things will change because that's the healing power of time. So today's talk was really about becoming more comfortable with the unknown. I wouldn't say I'm comfortable, but becoming more comfortable with the unknown. And there's 4 ways to think about it. How do you play with planning versus feeling and trying on the thing that's not your usual pattern? You reframe plans also as fluid pencil sketches, knowing that it'll change. Things will change, or you could change your mind. ABC, always be curious. Keep that curiosity there. And then finally, know that you can take things one day at a time and it'll work out. Everything will be okay. That's it for today. See you next Tuesday. All right. Bye.